2002 Chevy Cavalier, $1,400. Car runs great and has less than 300,000 miles on it. AC and stereo are in perfect condition. No dings or scratches. Email if you're interested. That's what the ad said on Craigslist. My daughter's 16th birthday is coming up, and I was looking to buy her a car. I'd been pursuing around various websites looking for deals when I came across the listing for the Chevy Cavalier. $1,400 for a car with less than 30,000 miles seemed too good to be true, even if it did have a few years on it. So I emailed the owner and set up a test drive to make sure it wasn't a lemon. The owner of the car was named Jack. He seemed like a nice enough guy over email, although I'm sure a lot of horror stories have started out with those exact words. We agreed to meet at his house. My GPS told me that it was in town, located about 15 minutes south of where I live. I wasn't too familiar with the area, even though I drove past it on the freeway every day on the way to work. I never had a reason to take the town's exit. Jack's home was located in a residential neighborhood that reminded me of something out of the Stepford Wives. Every lawn was neatly manicured. All the houses were nearly identical and well maintained. When I pulled up to the curb, he was already waiting for me in the driveway. I introduced myself and greeted him with a friendly handshake after exiting my vehicle. Right away, I was taken back by how odd of a fellow Jack seemed to be. He was a tall, robust man, yet exhibited a somewhat timorous demeanor that one might not expect from a person of his size and stature. I noticed his grip was limp and clammy as we shook hands. Even more peculiar was how quickly and forcefully he jerked his palm away from mine after less than a second of the embrace. I played it off, assuming he must be some kind of germaphobe. I never had much of an affinity for shaking hands myself. Even though he only appeared to be in his mid to late 30s, Jack was balding pretty heavily. He hid his face behind a pair of thick black-rimmed glasses that helped to further accentuate his Milton milquetoast-like appearance. We chatted briefly, about what, I can't even remember. I suppose I fell back on my usual go-to icebreakers, the weather, my kids, what I do for a living. The whole time we spoke, he shifted nervously from side to side, occasionally glancing off in the direction of his garage. Once I felt we had gotten better acquainted, I turned the conversation to the car. "So is the Chevy in the garage?" I said after making it clear that I had noticed the anxious glimpse that he had been shooting over my shoulder. Yes, he replied. "Would you like to see it?" "Well, it is the reason I came down here after all." I patted him on the left arm like one might do while palling around with an old chum, momentarily forgetting about his apparent aversion to touching. He recoiled backwards like a vampire who accidentally stepped into the sunlight. Perhaps I should have apologized, but before I got another word out, he retreated towards the garage and punched a number into the controller fixed to the side wall. As the door rolled upward onto its tracks revealing the Cavalier, I observed an uneasiness begin to build even more in Jack. The car looked exactly how it was described on the web. I walked around it looking for dents and scuffs, but I couldn't find any. It was in impeccable condition. "So why are you selling the car?" I asked. Jack had his head turned towards the street as if he was afraid to look at the old Chevy. "I don't use it. I take the bus mostly." "That's probably why there's so few miles on it," I inferred. "Did you say you were the original owner?" Jack said nothing. For a while, we stood in the garage, neither of us speaking to each other. Finally, in a pathetic, whimpering tone, he broke the awkward silence. "Leslie was." "Who?" I asked. "Leslie Franklin. She was we used to have a thing." "Uh-huh." I raised a skeptical eyebrow. From what I had seen out of Jack, I had serious doubts that a guy like him could handle a relationship. He flashed me an angry look, then, remembering I was standing next to the car, looked back out towards the street again. "I didn't always used to be so fat, you know. I was a personal trainer." He flexed his flabby muscles. "I met Leslie at the gym, and we started hooking up shortly after." "I'm not following, Jack," I said. "What does this have to do with the car?" His face had gone white, and I could tell the man was clearly distraught. I probably would have been more frightened if it hadn't been broad daylight out. Jack continued on as if he had never heard my question. "She was married, though. With a..." He stopped talking for a second and bit down on his fist. By the time he started up again, tears were streaming down his face. "She was married with a kid and everything. Cute little guy. Teddy was his name. Leslie and I would get together while her husband was at work. One day, he found out about us." That night he forced the family into the car, held them at gunpoint, shutting the garage door, and ran the engine. They were all dead by the time Leslie's sister found them in the morning. "Wait, hold on," I said. "Someone died in that car?" But Jack kept on talking as if I wasn't there. "Her sister sold it to a used car dealership. I found out which one and I bought it from them. I don't know why. I guess I thought it would make me feel closer to Leslie. I loved her." While he was talking, I put some distance between the unstable man and myself. Jack turned back towards the car. A look of absolute terror struck his face. "But they're still here. I see them every time I look at that thing. They talk to me. I can even hear them yelling at me while I'm inside the house. All of them. It's terrible. They tell me I ruined their family." He fell to his knees and began bawling hysterically. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." I slipped away during the breakdown and got back to my car, trying not to draw too much attention to myself. And there was no doubt in my mind that Jack was disturbed, and I had no way of telling whether or not he was going to become violent. I reached for my cell phone in the glove box so I could call the sheriff, but then I looked back towards the garage and I nearly swallowed my own tongue out of shock. Jack was balled up in the fetal position, crying on the pavement, but my eyes weren't set on watching him. A young man and woman were glaring at Jack from inside the Cavalier. The young man looked at him with a complete and utter disgust, while the woman wept, occasionally using her hand to wipe away the tears from her pallid face. A child's head popped up from the back seat. Only later did I realize that this must have been Teddy. He turned around, placing his face up against the back window, and started to stare at me through a pair of morbid yellow eyes. It felt as if his gaze was searing a hole into my soul. Strange sensations of guilt and self-loathing washed over me. I'm not sure what snapped me out of it, but the next thing I knew, I was peeling away from Jack's house and heading back towards the freeway I had come from, leaving the poor man to fend for himself. I didn't fully break free from that terrible fog until I was halfway home. Even to this day, every time I think of that boy's eyes, I can still feel the horrible emotions that ran through my body while he watched me. Jack was reported dead the next day. He had driven the car off a bridge into a lake. His bloated corpse was found floating face down in the water a few hours later. Due to the depth of the lake, the Cavalier was never recovered. I'm sure some say that he's in a better place now, but I don't really know what to think of it. I often find myself wondering if he's finally free from the guilt that family brought on him, or if his soul will be spending an eternity down at the bottom of that lake, trapped inside that car with them.